Hi, I'm Samantha Detweiler, and here I'm going to talk to our new principal, Principal Roth, and I'm going to introduce you to everyone. Hi, how are you doing?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm good. So how have your first days been?
Fun. It's been great. I've met a lot of really great people, obviously some great students, and my first impression is everyone is very warm and welcoming. Everyone's been very helpful.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am a lifelong resident of the other side of the Blue Route. So I grew up about 25 minutes from here. I went to Temple University, originally for broadcast journalism, but I was not as good at it as you guys are. So I got into education. I taught social studies for 6.5 years before getting into administration. My previous 14 years have been spent at Upper Darby High School, which was a great place. Not as great as Norristown, obviously, but and I learned a lot there. I am married. I have 2 kids, no offense to anyone else, but I have the 2 best kids in the world. Abby is 5 years old, Avery is 2 and thinks that she's 20, so they're always a lot of fun when I get home.
So I heard that you went to a high school that is very similar to here at Norristown. How was your experience there?
Great, yeah. So I went to Academy Park High School, which is a little smaller than Norristown. And Academy Park was the kind of place where I feel like the only people who truly understood Academy Park were people who went there. You know, we had a reputation with people who didn't go there that didn't quite fit the experience that I had. I had great teachers, teachers who changed my life forever. They pushed me, they challenged me. When I stumbled, they picked me up, they helped me out. I would not be the person I am today without those folks. And some of them I still keep in touch with to this day. Actually, one of them called me in the office this morning to say congratulations and good luck. So Academy Park was a great place. And what I learned is to never judge a book by its cover. It was a diverse school, so I've always valued diversity. And I think they taught me about integrity, honesty, and character, and that's the makings of a good person and a good school.
Yeah, it sounds like some experience that we have here at Norristown too. Also, what happened at Temple? How did you go into education, stuff like that?
So I was a broadcast journalism major for 2.5 years. I was excited to get into journalism. I don't think I completely understood what it took to be successful in journalism. So I wasn't sure going into it what I wanted to do. If I wanted to do background stuff, if I wanted to do TV, if I wanted to do radio. I wasn't sure if I wanted to focus on sports or politics or a little of both. I realized that I was too ugly for TV, so that was out. And I think I just started giving some thought to the fact that to get a job in journalism, you have to move all over the country. You know, you might work in Nebraska, and your next job might be in Idaho. And I thought that'd be great when I was in my early 20s. But I also luckily thought about having a family and the fact that I wouldn't want my parents to move all over the place. And so that made it less appealing to me. Education was always in the back of my mind. I always loved history. And so I sat with an advisor and saw how I could make that work. Thankfully, all my electives I took in history, so it worked out really well. I student taught at Upper Darby High School, where I was fortunate enough to get a job, and the rest is history.
Did you do anything outside of school or with Upper Darby when you weren't a principal?
When I was in high school, I played baseball in high school. Outside of high school, I played football and basketball. I was never good enough at those to play at the high school level. I played baseball until I was 31 years old. I love baseball. If you come in my office, you'll see baseball stuff all over the place. I coached baseball at Upper Darby High School. We had some great years. I was an assistant basketball coach there as well, had some great years. Actually, my only time in Norristown prior to coming here to have this job was coming here to scout Norristown because I knew we were going to play them in the playoffs. And my memories of that were that it was a great electric atmosphere at those basketball games. I guess that was probably around 2005, 2006. So sports is big. I'm also very interested just in learning. I love to read. I love to learn new things. I love talking to people, even though when I was little, I was the shyest person you'd ever meet. And obviously now I never stop talking. So anything I can do to learn something new and meet new people, I'm excited to do it.
That sounds good. So what other hobbies do you have, like going out with your family, or what's some of your favorite places?
Right now, it's all about my wife and kids. My wife, Lauren, is great. She's the best person I know. She's a school counselor at a private school in Villanova. We used to work together actually years ago in Upper Darby. My two girls, like I said, they are absolutely amazing. They make me laugh every day. And so anything I can do with them is time well spent. It's funny, as you get older, the things that I used to wonder, doesn't life get boring when the most exciting part of your week is going to the zoo with your kids? But that is by far the most exciting thing that I do. So that's a lot of fun. I like to try and golf. I'm an awful golfer, but it's fun and it gives me a little time to think and be away from everything else.
So why did you choose Norristown?
I chose Norristown because it sounded like a place, kind of as we talked about before, that seems similar to my other experience. It sounds like a place that is full of character and integrity. There's obviously a lot of success at Norristown Area High School, a lot. It blew me away, to be honest, when I started researching the school. Whether you're judging a school by test scores, whether you're judging a school by the things that you can find students doing in terms of extracurriculars, there's a very positive vibe that I felt here. I want to work in a place where people are passionate about not just learning and music and sports and drama, but also passionate about who they are as a community. And as an outsider, looking in, I saw Norristown as a place that was really hungry to continue to let the world know how great the students and staff of this school are.
So what are your goals for this upcoming school year?
I think my number one goal is pride. I want everyone here to be proud of what happens here. And again, the pride that is here was appealing to me. It's a reason why I wanted to come here. But I want us to be proud of everything. I want us to celebrate every little success. Like I said before, no one will ever understand what it's like to be in this high school unless they're here. And that's true of any school. Mm-hmm. But I want people to, when they talk about Norristown, to be proud of it. People will always ask students, they'll ask me, they'll ask staff, what's Norristown High School like today? And when people ask that question, I want people to see your face light up. I want people to passionately sell the school to the point where people will eventually get tired of hearing me brag about the things that you guys do. And I get that vibe from the people I've met so far. That's my number one goal.
Is there anything you're really excited about for meeting with students or this upcoming school year at all?
I'm really excited to get to know people. This is the first time in my professional life that I am in a new school. So it's a very different experience for me. I can't wait to meet the teachers, the staff. I can't wait to meet the students. There's no point in working in a school if you don't enjoy being with students. And so that's what excites me the most. I'm coming from a very large high school, so the fact that this is relatively smaller, I'm looking forward to get to know kids, on a good professional academic level.
And I know you explained why it's important to have pride in your school. So what are some things that you want students to do to be able to do more activities and have more pride?
It's all about how we carry ourselves. It's all about wanting to continuously improve. When I think back about my teenage years, like I said, I was a really shy kid. I was looking for a way. I wasn't even looking for a way to break out. I needed to grow more confident. And that happened as I was taught to push myself to try different things. I'll tell people all the time about the failures that I had. I'll tell people about my 19 average in biology my freshman year. I was not the student that I should have been, but my teachers pushed me to be better. And I think that's the goal of a school, is just continuously push everyone to be better. And a big part of that is high school's a lot easier if you have fun. It's a lot easier if you're doing things, whether it's in the communications center or on an athletic field or in the choir room. When I think back about my high school experience, I was not a great athlete. I was not a great journalist in the student paper, but they're the things that I remember. And that's what I want people to remember about this place.
So how would you get students involved that aren't as interested or are discouraged to go out and go to a football game or a basketball game?
A lot of students, we push as educators. We tend to push activities to freshmen when they start the year. We tend to push it to everyone when the year starts. And then sometimes we forget to keep pushing the things that are there. And so I think it's really important to make sure that everyone knows what's going on at all times. Sometimes in schools we celebrate the big things. We celebrate when there's a big win in a sport, or when a student wins a big award. But we also have to celebrate the fact that the gaming club met the day before and there were 20 kids there. Because every student reaches the point that they want to branch out at a different time. And so if it comes on your program, if it comes over the PA system, that the art club met yesterday, it might just be the time that there's some freshman sitting there thinking, I want to try that. And so we have to put that message out early and often, and it has to come from you and I and everyone else in this building, just to catch people at the right time.
So how are you going to start building relationship with students once they do start their first day?
I think there's only one way to do that. It's all about FaceTime. I love being in the hallways. I love shaking people's hands. I want people to know that when I see you in the hallway and I ask you how you are, sometimes people will say, hey, how's it going? And they just mean it as a greeting, but they don't really care how it's going. They don't really care how you are. I do. I want you to stop and to tell me how things are. If they're great, I want to know. If they're not great, it's my job to help. And I admit I'm not great with names, so I'll ask people their name over and over and over again. But it's just all about FaceTime and being genuine. I'm honest. I will never lie to you. I will never lie to anyone. And I just want people to know that I'm a genuine, I wear my heart on my sleeve. You'll see when I'm happy. You'll see when I'm not. But I feel like the more that we can talk to each other, the more that we can trust each other, and that's what every relationship is built on.
So also, since the high schools are judged on performance levels of the students, how do you think you'll help with the Norristown Area High School students to succeed?
So to push academic achievement, which this school has a great track record in recent years of doing that, it's all about focusing on the basics to a large extent. Schools are built around reading, writing, and math, just like it was for us when we were in kindergarten. And we have to continue to revisit those skills over and over and over again. When I was in 10th grade, I started thinking about wanting to be a journalist. There was one problem. I was an awful writer. Kind of important, right? Mm-hmm. So I asked my teacher, I said, how do I become a better writer? And the answer she gave me was a very simple one, but it wasn't what I expected. She said, you need to read a lot more. The more that you read, the better you write, because you'll start to mimic what you read. And I think it's our job as educators to make sure that regardless of the class, I taught history. When I started teaching history, I didn't think enough about having students read about history. But they need to read. They need to write. It can be informal. That's fine. And we also need to learn interpersonal skills. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's a generation where people communicate now through their phones and through social media, and the art of looking people in the eye and having conversation is lost, so we need to teach that as well.
Okay, so I know you redesigned the Upper Darby School Code of Conduct. Can you tell me a little bit about what you did and how it changed the school?
Sure. I like to think that we made it a little more about common sense. Students are going to mess up. I made mistakes. I will continue to make mistakes, and I've never met someone who doesn't. So the Code of Conduct obviously is about rules and enforcing rules. And sometimes we think about things like the Code of Conduct too much in terms of how do we enforce the rules. Mm-hmm. The key for us really is to make sure everyone's aware of our expectations. I have very high expectations for myself and for everyone else here. And if I want you to follow a certain rule, I have to make sure that you understand what I want. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we get frustrated with people when they don't do what we want, but we never took the time to tell them. The other things that we did was we tried to make sure the consequences were logical. Schools sometimes can be overly punitive. Sometimes there's things that are a really big deal that we don't focus on enough. And so we tried to make it make more sense that if we were giving someone a Saturday detention for a certain offense, that the offense really warranted a Saturday detention. Suspension is a major deal. If a student gets suspended, that should be a major event for the student, for the family, and for me if I'm the one doing it. So we had that lens looking at the code of conduct, and we also made it to where we put a system in place where we could track how students were doing before they started committing major offenses. And a big part of it for me also was, and I was this way as a coach, if you played on my baseball or basketball team, if I was going to let you go on the field, I knew you were the type of person I wanted representing me in my school. And so part of the code of conduct for us when we rewrote it there was that if you're not going to consistently follow the rules, then you're not going to get on the field. It didn't keep many people off the field. What it did was just had people reflect on their behavior to make sure that they were representing our school in a positive way.
So is there any plans so far to redesign any of our procedures here that we already have?
I think our plans are to focus on the basics. We want students to be in class, learning as much as possible. I can't ask a teacher to teach you if you're in the hallways, or if you're late to class, or if you don't come to school. I need people to have respectful interactions. I need people to build relationships. But for me, it's all about making sure that I understand the rules and expectations that are already in place. Norristown's appealing to me because this isn't a school that needs somebody to come in and change everything. We just have to make sure that the rules that we have, the expectations that we have, that we enforce them. That we make sure that everyone knows that it's consistent so that it doesn't feel personal. If you happen to get in trouble for something, I want you to know that that consequence would be the same whether it was you or anyone else. And if you get away with something, everyone should get away with it. And that's how all teenagers want is to be treated fairly. And so I just want to make sure that we focus in on what's important, and that if a rule doesn't have anything to do with you learning or with safety, then it shouldn't be at the top of our priority list.
So what do you think are the biggest issues that Norristown faces?
I'll admit, that's a little tough to say. I've been here for 5 days. But my understanding so far is that Norristown faces the same issues that a lot of schools face. We have to make sure that we carry ourselves with pride. We have to make sure that we don't get bogged down in the negative. And we have to make sure that we celebrate our successes. And I'm not saying that that is something that doesn't already happen, because I think it does happen, because I've met a ton of people here who have told me a lot of great things about Norristown. But I just want to make sure that we focus on that. If we focus on carrying ourselves with pride and respect, respecting ourselves, making sure that what we do in this school is something that our grandmother would be happy with, and that's not just in terms of behavior, it's in terms of academics and pushing ourselves. The list of colleges that Norristown students go to is impressive. That only happens if we push academically. That seems like it's already ingrained here. I just want to further that. I want to continue to catch more and more students in that culture of dreaming lofty goals, and then it's our job to push you to get there.
And is there anything else you would like to add on anything that you're going to do or anything that you plan to do?
I just, at my last school, I always talked about it's a family, and it was. And I'm here because I want to be a part of your family. I want to be a part of this community. I want us to feel like a family. I want us to, when someone does something great, for all of us to be excited about it. I want us to know that when somebody struggles, it's all of our job to help that person. If we achieve that, if we continue to achieve that, because again, I'm not assuming that doesn't already happen here, but that's how you get that positive feeling in the hallways. I think sometimes we have this perception of schools like what we see on TV, right? And of course, high schools on TV are nothing like real high schools, but you want to get as close to that idealistic version as possible. I want people to be proud to wear our colors and to wear our logo, and I want people to see us out at whether it's the fall play or a football game or or as many people watching your program as possible. I want people to take pride in what happens here, and I'm excited to get to know all the things that make people proud.
So I know Upper Darby is very diverse, just like Norristown is. Can you tell me a little bit about what went on up at your high school?
So Upper Darby is, I don't know if there's anywhere more diverse on the planet. It's what really helps to make that a special place. I think that is in common with Norristown. I think part of the reason why when I was a student taught at Upper Darby, I loved it there so much was because it reminded me of where I went to high school again. I went to a high school that was diverse. I went to a high school where I learned a lot from the people around me. And so being at Upper Darby was a great chance for me to help students learn that same way. Upper Darby is a place that has always prided itself on diversity. And my whole thing has always been, we can't be proud of just being diverse. We have to live that diversity. We have to really know that a diverse school where everyone sits at different tables in the cafeteria isn't a place where people are really learning from each other. It's just a place where people coexist. And so I really want to start conversations, and they're difficult to start sometimes. But the more that people talk to each other and get to understand each other, the more that we walk away at the end of the day respecting each other. I talk about wanting people to be proud of this school. That can only happen if you feel welcome here. That can only happen if you feel connected. Sometimes people feel welcome coming in the door, but they don't always feel connected. Maybe they feel like because they come from a certain group that they just kind of come here and have to go home at the end of the day. And I don't mean that about Norristown because I don't know Norristown well enough yet. So I'm just kind of speaking about places in general. But I like opening up those conversations. One of the things that I will forever be most proud of is a card I got from a teacher at Upper Darby when I left. And she said that what she will remember is that when I used to talk about diversity and we would do trainings, she used to tune it out because she didn't think that she needed it. But over the course of 4 years, she learned that she had a lot to learn, and that it opened her eyes to a lot of things that she never had to experience because of her background. If we can do that here with our staff, with our students, and I have to continue to do that for myself, then we're going to learn the things that they can't put in textbooks.
So what was the racial breakdown of Upper Darby?
Upper Darby High School is roughly 50% black, a lot of African American population, but also a lot of black students from the Caribbean, a large Haitian population, and a lot of students from Africa, a lot of Liberian students, students from Sierra Leone, and about, I want to say about a third white, and then as diverse as you can get. Upper Darby has close to 50 languages spoken in the school, which is actually less than they used to have. When we would interview a teacher to be a part of our English language program, people would always come in and they would be eager to tell us that they can speak Spanish, which was fantastic. But I also needed people who could relate to students who spoke Bengali or Urdu. Not many people walked in the door speaking those languages. But again, it's having people that can understand that everybody comes from all over the place, and we talk about things like respect in schools a lot. Respect can mean different things to different people, regardless of your ethnic, racial, or religious background. And so with that amazingly diverse population, a large migrant population, a lot of refugees from different parts of the world, we lived diversity unlike any place I have ever been in my life.
So what about gender issues at Upper Darby?
Certainly something that we talked a lot about, and I was excited to talk a lot about. Just like race and ethnicity, I want people to be proud of who they are. And whether we're talking about your gender, your sexual orientation, whether we're talking about your race, your ethnicity, or your religion, you are whoever you are. And I can't tell you who to be. I can't tell you what to think. The only thing that I can try to get you to do is to have conversations with other people. And if you have those conversations enough, then you can move beyond the fear of talking about certain things. You can move beyond being uncomfortable with certain things. I can't tell people what to like or who to like. But I think what we did really well there was we We empowered students to tell their story. We empowered students to tell their story to each other. We empowered students to tell their story to staff. And so we learned what it was like to be a trans student by talking to trans students. We learned what it was like as a bisexual high school student by talking to bisexual high school students. And that is where we really learn. I go back to this quote that I love, and one thing people will learn about me, I love rap music, so it's actually a quote from one of my favorite rappers, but the quote is, "You can't expect me to think like you because my life's not like yours." And a lot of times people are quick to say, oh, what were they thinking? Well, if you're going to ask that question, you should really want to know the answer, because they might think a little differently than you do. Their background might be a little differently than yours. So regardless of how people identify, regardless of who people love, I want people to be comfortable being themselves. And I want people to, again, be proud of who they are.
Can you tell me a little bit about the LGBTQ programs that you did?
Sure. So we had a gay-straight alliance, they still do, a gay-straight alliance that grew a lot during the course of my time there. And again, it was students really becoming empowered to tell their stories. Years and years ago, before I was principal, that group started, I think, more just as a place where students could come together because they could identify with each other. Those kids and the staff who worked with them were so talented in pulling people in. They had these faculty advisory days where they would invite people to come after school, ask questions, and they would always say, don't feel dumb asking a question. Because they wanted to tell you the answer. They wanted you to kind of do away with that fear of having the conversation. So the GSA at Upper Darby High School has grown immensely. They do great things. We also did some staff trainings about learning, quite frankly, learning the language, learning what it is to identify as a broad number of gender identities. And that changed conversations for a lot of our staff. I won't lie to you, I could see some people snickering going into some of the trainings. But some of those same people came out, changed. It doesn't happen quickly. You can't have one conversation and change what someone believes. And you're not always going to change what people believe. But they could at least speak in a way that made people feel respected and connected to the school.
So how would you engage immigrants that will come in and stuff like that?
So I think if I place myself in the shoes of any new student at any school, I have a lot to learn, right? I have a lot to learn right now. Tell me to go to room 305, I quite frankly don't know where it is. So that's true of any new student. But then think about the fact that there is a language that I'm unfamiliar with. There are cultures and traditional things that I am not familiar with. And again, I want someone who doesn't just force me to learn your culture, but who also wants to learn my culture. So if I am someone who's coming here from Nicaragua or El Salvador, I want people who don't just help me to become acclimated to Norristown, but I also want people who care about what my experiences were when I was in, what my history is, where I lived, where I came from, and where my family is, and where I will probably go back to visit many, many times.
So also, how will you engage the Norristown High School and the community that surrounds it?
Schools fall short a lot of times connecting with the community because schools always invite the community to come to the school. I can invite people to come here all I want, and many people will, and I will love that. But I also need to get out into the community. I need to see where people live. I need to see where people worship. I need to see who the real leaders are in the community. We have a very sometimes we have a very standard way of thinking about who leaders are, right? They're your elected officials, they're the principal of your school. But sometimes the most powerful person in a community is the youth football coach, or it's the imam at the mosque, or it's the person at the welcome center that maybe immigrants or people new to the community will come to. I need to go and see who those people are. Sometimes it's the barbershop. Go and see what people, really think and where they, where people feel at home. And that is different in any neighborhood, block by block. And I think that's especially true of Norristown. Norristown's diverse not just in terms of race and ethnicity, it's diverse in terms of socioeconomic status, it's diverse in terms of language, it's diverse in terms of religion, and you have to keep going out and visiting people where they live and breathe all the time in order to get a feel for that.
Okay, is there anything else you would like to add?
I'm so excited to be here. Please come, introduce yourself. I will introduce myself to you. Don't ever feel like you're bothering me. I really feel like this is a great place. I feel at home already after a week, even though I have no idea where room 305 is. So I just look forward to becoming a part of your school and your community.
Okay, well, welcome. We're really excited to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm Samantha, here talking to the new principal, Principal Roth, and we'll go back to the Eagle's Eye.